Welcome to 3D View, one conversation, three different perspectives. I'm Lamondre Pugh.
I am David Perez.
And I'm Richard Strice. Thank you for joining us.
There is a concept out there called work-life balance, and for years and years, we've really been dealing with this. We've been trying to keep that balance between our personal lives and our work lives. Well, when COVID-19 hit and the world changed, what we noticed was that it was no longer work-life balance, but more like a work-life collision, because the lines were completely blurred. No longer was there this concept of, okay, I'm working and now I'm at home, or I'm working and this is my personal life and this is my professional life. When everyone had to go home and we started doing Zoom meetings and whatever platform that people used, we started to see our personal lives creep into our professional lives. And when it first started happening, we were all kind of chuckling and giggling about it because, let's face it, was absolutely funny to see kids come crashing in on like a really serious interview or a really serious meeting. But the truth is, it brought about some changes and it made us see things differently. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the work-life collision. So guys, tell me about your experiences with the work-life collision.
Well, it's fascinating because one of the things I think that the act of isolating and staying at home isn't necessarily, well, it's isolating for some, but for others, it's really getting to know your family again, for other than just passing, in the early morning or in the evening or before going to bed, saying hi bye, this kind of thing. And I think, that has created a level of humanity amongst all of us, which I think we as a general society has sort of lost sight of. And the act of that, bringing everyone back down to earth, not having to wear this battle armor, has allowed, your work persona, this battle armor that we put on when we go to the office or go to whatever job we do. I think staying at home humanizes us all, and as a reaction to that, when we interact with people like this medium that we're using here, I think there's a relation to the individual on the other side in a very empathetic way that as feeling more humanized, we now relate at a much different and a more real level, a more authentic level.
Yeah, no, I agree with Richard that it definitely has humanized everyone. I think that we were all hiding some parts of ourselves behind the walls of our office or our home, right? Now they're both together. They're both the same place. And every single person that you meet, mm-hmm. you see them right there in their element, basically. You see them dealing with the things that they have to deal with, like dogs barking or kids running around and things simply happening. And I think that gives us a great opportunity to also humanize business, right? Because business has always been more about the numbers and the intangibles than the people themselves, right? And who am I affecting? What am I doing? What I'm doing, is it ethic, or if it is not ethic, am I hurting people or am I helping them? I think that all of this humanization of the workplace by actually being separate, which is very ironic.
Counterintuitive, yes.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it actually opens up doors for bigger conversations and better and more interesting places to work at. Because I know for a fact that my generation in general were looking for places to work at where they felt valued, where they felt that they were doing something valuable at the same time. And not knowing who you're affecting, not knowing that your teammates are also people because they appear like corporate robots. I know that hurt a lot of people in their self progress or development journey. And having to deal with this has been hard, as we have discussed in past episodes, but I know that it has also opened opportunities for growth in personal and as corporations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think that, having a glimpse inside of someone's world, seeing them in their natural surrounding also helps to, as you said, David, get rid of the whole robot concept and really allows us to see people as individuals. And honestly, when you begin to see people as individuals and you begin to see them in their element, in their environment, what that does is it creates environments where people do have a sense of belonging. Because yes, we're working, yes, we're being productive or whatever it is, but because I see you as an individual, I see David. I don't just see employee number 110123. I see David. I see David's couch. I see, or I see Richard. I see that, Richard has a map behind him. And whatever that says about Richard's personality, it's giving me a glimpse into who and what he is. So it gives us a sense of belonging. It gives us actually a sense of community, a sense of, a collection of individuals who still have their individual traits and characteristics, but we're working towards a common goal. So I really think that it's also a boost and a support of diversity. It's a support of the inclusion message that we work so hard to promote and get out there. We can actually see it now. We can see that diversity in people's homes. Richard?
Well, yeah, what's interesting is that it creates a level playing field, right? It sort of rebaseline's everyone starting from the same point. For many, many people, everyone had to kind of learn and figure out how to use this medium, whatever platform that they're using, and so everyone had to sort of deal with the fumbling around, the awkwardness of, camera not working, the talking, but the mic's not on, the mute's on, and this sort of thing. Everyone sort of had to relearn that. And no matter how sophisticated or what level they were in the office, it baselines everyone. Everyone's starting from the same. And again, I think that, as we were talking about, that level of humanization tends to lead to more richer conversations. And in the business world, as individuals connect more at that level, you end up having much more real, authentic conversations that lead to better, more richer business relationships, and more can be accomplished. And I think that can only be good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I want to say this as well, so we won't. So it won't seem like everybody is doing this. We recognize that there are a number of industries and people who did not, do the whole work from home thing, and were not necessarily, did not necessarily have to deal with that. And we also recognize that there are a lot of people who could not do that. But I think that there has been so many people that have had to do that and have had to make these adjustments, that it has fundamentally changed the way we view how we can work. And of course, I don't know how things are going to go once this pandemic has gotten to a place where it's more manageable and people can get back into the world. But I really don't believe it's ever going to go back to what it was. I don't think it's going to ever go back to business as usual. So I think we have forever and fundamentally changed the way we communicate and the way we do business with this.
Yeah, no, we definitely have. I think it's a fact that business has changed and it will never be the same again. There are companies that are already making the move to work from home completely because there's actually no need, thanks to the internet, for you to have a building in the biggest part of town and drive up prices of real estate all around you just to exist as a company. That's not necessary. And the biggest companies in the world are going that route, right? What that can do for small businesses that are just starting out is incredible, right? Because now you don't need that sort of old school mentality of creating a business to actually start one and create big impact in your industry, whatever it might be, right? you can start from your garage, as we have always said across the entrepreneurship world. It started from a garage. Well, now it really can start from a garage, and it will be taken with the same seriousness that it has, that if you were in a business building or wherever you were in the world. So it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, brick and mortar has become less and less significant in terms of being able to connect, in terms of having a real quote unquote business. Because before it was about the address. Before it was about, hey, where is your office located? Before it was about those things. But now those things are so much less important. It really boils down to, okay, what can we do? How nimble is this business? How can we move this forward? But the other side of that it brings up for me is I think about, the digital divide and what that means for, rural communities or areas where high speed internet is not readily available, and what this time could mean as we make this transition into being reliant much more on digital communications, what that means for populations that don't have access like that, and how much wider that divide is going to become unless something is done drastically to change that. People are going to be left behind.
And one of the biggest exposures of that is the whole school. What's happening with schools all over the place.
Absolutely.
Is the availability of having the tools and laptops or tablets or what have you, along with the high speed connection to be able to participate in schools for those that are schooling at home or doing online schooling. And so that really exasperates and really exposes how fragile our more rural and remote communities are. And those individuals, not necessarily being having the same benefit as kids their same age in more urban settings. So it is a very interesting and challenging problem. And I think because we're at a huge paradigm shift, just a huge paradigm shift across so many business sectors with what's going on, that, there's no way we can go back. That's just not, in a way, this is our version of the Industrial Revolution, right? Where we weren't going back to horses and it's that sort of large shift in how we're going to move from here forward. It's really, and I think that that's driven by a couple things that have happened simultaneously. So we have an old guard, sort of the old generation that grew up with that, had to have the address, had to have the brick and mortar. And as a result of everything that's happening right now, they're all starting to not necessarily be as active as the new younger generation is really pushing into those leadership positions in corporations and in some of the, the old stodgy boardrooms that are getting infiltrated now. Not because the older generation wants us, because they don't have a choice. They've got to fill the chairs, and just good old fashioned attrition sort of plays its hand with the turnover eventually, right? They can only hang on so long. And so what's interesting, I think, is the idea of that transition happening. So the brick and mortar, not important, but those are, I think, old tenets of that past generation, that old type of way of thinking. And so it's interesting to see how this is all going to shift, where, going back to your point, Lamondre, about the digital divide, I think that what we've done is expose it egregiously as it exists. And now it's up to us as a society and as a global culture to turn that around and try to figure out, how do we make a truly global connected neighborhood?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the future of work was pushed with this pandemic. Because we were already transitioning from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things. AI was becoming more prominent. We were talking about VR, augmented reality, and all of those different things that were going to change the way we worked. Of course, the gig economy and all of those little things were already part of the conversation. But when something like this happens that actually breaks the world, completely stops it, and people had to adapt. And the only things that were there for people to adapt to were the parts that were part of that future of work. And the future of work right now is a reality. Like the fourth industrial revolution already happened. It's right now we have to make sure that no one is left behind, as Lamondre was saying. That's actually, I think, UNESCO's or UNICEF's slogan: no one left behind. Because we are developing countries, we are making a lot of progress. Every time I see a new technology device, I get super excited, but at the same time, I'm thinking, when is this going to reach the general population? The people that don't have access? Because I think of all the things that I get access to, the internet, information, whatever I want to learn, I basically can learn right now because everything's available on YouTube or on Google or anywhere else. But that's not really the case for a lot of people that don't have access to the internet, or that they have limited data plans.
Right.
Even in countries like Costa Rica that decided that access to internet was a human right, there are still data caps, which is completely mind-boggling, for lack of a better way of saying it. Because if you're trying to get people access to information as a vital resource for their development as people, you need to make sure that that access is free, right? It's like saying water is a human right, and then people don't have access to water if they don't pay enough money. Like that happened actually in Chile.
Oh, wow.
So we need to make sure that people have access not only to the tools to access, but also the access. Because if there's no internet, how are they going to be able to create those ideas, those magical things that can happen from one person not even going to college, but actually getting the tools that they needed from Google or wherever they were looking at?
Right. And I think you're right, David. Access to the internet, to high speed, quality internet connection is vital. It's absolutely vital because, let's think back a little bit, a few years back, because when you think about it, the whole internet and search engines and all of those kinds of things, it has created so much wealth. It has created so many jobs. It has created so many millionaires that, literally started from nothing, but because they had access and an idea and stumbled upon something, it completely changed their lives. And that's not even talking about not necessarily the millionaires that it created, because we recognize that not everybody's a millionaire, but look at what it's done for just your average, ordinary, everyday people who may have not had the opportunity to even live a quote middle class unquote life, but now because of access to these kinds of things, there are entrepreneurs out there. There are people who are coding. There are so many different people doing different things, and it's all because they had access to the internet. And it's not that they had the biggest and best computers or had the hottest software that came down the pipe. Some of the stuff was created, in freeware that's just available because you have access to the internet. And so I think that it's really, really, really vitally important that, as you said, David, that we consider the internet, access to information, as a human right. And we recognize that there are powers who fight against that because it's something to be gained for limiting data. It's something to be gained from making people pay more. If you really want the fast access, if you really want to have access to all, just pay a little bit more and we've got you covered. Obviously, there's a financial gain in it for some folks, for a few folks. But the reality is, the way that this technology, the way that the internet has changed mankind, has changed the way we communicate, has changed the way that we do business, has changed the way that we even see the world. We've got to we've got to do what we can to make certain that people are not left behind. So I guess one of the questions that I have is, what can we do? What can we do to ensure that people are not left behind so that they can also experience this work-life collision?
Well, I mean, provide affordable gear for these more remote areas, so that the network can be broadened out and be maintained.
So you mean like 5G, that kind of?
Well, not just necessarily 5G, but I mean even just the gear that's out there now is horribly outdated. But because it's in rural areas, the telecom companies aren't interested in updating them or changing them out, because it doesn't make fiscal sense to their bottom line. And so that's, I think, the big crime is that, we need to revisit that it shouldn't just be to the telecom companies to decide who is going to get internet and who is not. It's really quite unfortunate that that's the way it is, but I know several cases personally that that's just the fact is that because they are in a remote location, they don't get high-speed internet because it costs too much to get high-speed internet out there. And so is that's just not right. Again, that's what creates that digital divide.
If things are going to change, they need to change with the government and corporations working together.
Yeah.
I don't think that a corporation is going to do it because they are short-sighted. We know that corporations by themselves move slow when they need to make changes because they only care about what they get at the end of the year, right? They need to make those decisions like that. And the government is the one that needs to give access to the rural communities across the world. It's governments that are interested in making their taxpayers more money so that they can have more money, right? So if we take both of those interests together and put them working together, I am sure that corporations can work with the government and create solutions that are long-lasting and that can actually affect entire communities in a positive way, giving them access and giving them the tools in one way or another. If it is by giving them, free devices, that might be the case in some rural communities that have actually no money. But imagine what can happen in the long term if you give these people the tools to actually make progress, to actually go to school. That's why I'm saying it is short-sighted, because if you're only thinking about your bottom line next year, maybe it's not going to reflect by then. But imagine what those consumers will be able to afford if they have the tools to actually make something out of themselves. And the system's not oppressing them all the time, because that's what's happening right now. If you don't have access, you're not considered, at all.
Right.
People don't think about you, not in politics, not in corporations. And that's why we call them disenfranchised, right? And they really don't have anyone fighting for them because no one really knows about them.
Right.
So giving them access has to be a joint effort, I think. And that's the only solution I see, a joint effort between governments, NGOs, and corporations all working together to get them access.
Yeah, I agree. And I also agree with the concept that having access to a high-speed internet connection is really a seat at the table. It's a seat at the table, and it's also the opportunity to create your own table. And we know that, it really is the story of accessibility. Yes, we especially from the work that we do, we talk a lot about accessibility in terms of people with disabilities. But the truth is, when you look at it from this perspective, this is about accessibility to the mainstream world. And if you don't have high-speed internet connection, you really don't have that. You really don't have access. You are blocked out and you're missing out. And I know some people were worried about whether or not they could, deal with the technology. Could they manipulate it? All those kinds of things. But the thing that I found is once people have access and they start playing with it, yes, they can, and they usually adapt pretty well. Even older folks. I used to do a radio show called the Lamondre Pugh Show, Empowerment Radio, and one of the shows I did was talking about technology, and we were talking about advances. And there was a gentleman. There was a gentleman who was blind, and we were talking about software that reads screen readers and all those kinds of things. And he had never heard anything about that before. And he called into the show. This was an actual land talk show. And he called into the show and he said that he was 80 something years old. He had never heard of that before, but he is now going to look into that. He was going to contact the Commission for the Blind and see if they could help him with that. And it was amazing to me to hear someone who's in his 80s calling in saying he had never heard anything about that, but he was definitely going to look into it. So what got me excited about that was that he became excited about the technologies that was out there. And so, if given the opportunity, if given the access, then people will adapt. They will take it and they will make something incredible happen with this. So I agree with you, David. I think it has to be a joint thing with corporations, government organizations, and NGOs to come together and really say, hey, we're investing in the future of us, and putting it out there.
Right. One of the unfortunate things, given this day and age, is a lot of that takes strong leadership, and that's something that we are lacking with our governmental administration, just not only here in the U.S. but all over other countries as well. Is the idea of this lack of leadership or the lack of thinking for the future and thinking for what's best for the peoples of a country or of a region. I firmly believe that'll change. We're just in a period of time that we have to transition from. But unfortunately, without strong leadership, it's very, very difficult to bring all of those powerful players to the table and have a real good, honest conversation about the future.
Yeah.
I think it's about strong leadership and empathy at the same time.
Well, you're right.
Exactly. I've been seeing a lot of good efforts being put forward by governments, not in the US, but around the world. Right. And the opposition tries to take them down because it won't make them look good, specifically. Right. And when you're trying to build a country, to build the world, you need to make sure that you're thinking first of the people and investing in the people, and second about your party, what you really want to for the next election, or even yourself, right? I think that's why that phrase resonates so much with me, the one that says that a society is growing strong when they are able to plant trees that they won't necessarily see grow or be able to enjoy the shade.
Right.
Because we need to grow stronger as a society and realize that we need to plant the seeds of things that we're not going to be able to see right now. And we're not going to see the benefits, and we're going to be more in debt next year, but we're investing in creating a better society. And that investment needs to be invested. It needs to be consistent. You can't pull out of the market when things are down. And that's what people are doing most of the time when it comes to investing in disenfranchised communities. They just, it didn't work, and they remove everything.
Right.
That's not how things work.
Right. Yeah, and for some reason we do have that tendency to just think about us and the here and now, like just right now, what's happening with me right now and what's going to be my outcome from this. But we have to remember we are stewards of this place, and we're stewards of our societies. And if we want our society to be a strong, thriving society, we have to plant the seeds now. And I believe that the global pandemic has afforded us the opportunity to do that, to kind of pull back, pause for a moment, rethink, reassess, and forge a brighter tomorrow, forge a way, a new path for us to move forward. And I think that we just really have to, we really need to capitalize on that opportunity to do that. And I think we will. Again, I'm an optimist. I believe that we will make that turn and we will do that. And I think that we will figure out ways to open the doors for more people to have access. I believe that we will find a way to not think so much about the here and now, but also about tomorrow and how we make that look better, even though we might not see that, So that's where I am. This is a really interesting conversation. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out within the next 6 months and then the year out from that. So,
even just the next month in what's going to happen with the schools, with everyone going back to school, how that's going to play out, what issues are going to blossom as a result of the challenges or benefits that with the decisions that are being made about reopening schools. So it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great conversation, guys. That's about all the time we have for 3D View. So when you're thinking about your work-life balance and your work-life collision, think about how access to technologies have changed things. Think about what it means to have that access. And if you know of communities and people who don't have access, think about what you can do to help that situation. I know one of the things you can do is get out and get politically active. If nothing else, the bare minimum, vote.
And then vote.
Thanks for joining us this week on 3D View. Make sure to visit our website, ruglobal.com/3dview. That's ruhglobal.com/3dvu, where you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts or join our YouTube channel so you will never miss a show. While you're at it, if you find value in the show, we appreciate it if you would leave a like or comment or simply tell a friend about the show. That would really help us a lot too. If you would like to join our conversations, you can join our Facebook community, 3D View, 3 Perspectives, 1 Conversation.